Okay, let's go.
Well, hello there, chick chatters. We're back with Love is Blind episode 4 recap. And they start us off with Jeremy and Sarah on their little pod date talking about dreams and whether or not they talk during sex. So they're really starting us out the gate with that.
Yeah, I think I agree though with Jeremy that she's not occupied well enough. I understand the words being exchanged, but not a full-on conversation.
Yeah, I wonder what she's talking about.
Yeah, like their plans for next weekend or what they're gonna have for dinner. I don't
Is she
know.
narrating? I don't know.
Oh, that could be
Maybe-
interesting. That's a different type of dirty talk than I've heard before.
Yeah, maybe she's got some like Morgan Freeman thing going on. They are talking about their feelings, and I believe Sarah's trying to tell her that she's catching feelings for him, and he's kind of telling her it's just more sexual. So that's his like sexual fling, and it seems like Laura is his emotional fling.
Yeah, that's the way he's saying it, at least. We shall see about that.
Yep. And then Sarah decides to go back to the living quarters and start professing her love for Jeremy and how they're going to get married. And Laura can hear her from across the cafeteria thing that they're all in. It looks like a cafeteria. Like, it don't even look like a living space. It looks like a bunch of tables around
Well,
kitchen
it's
island.
obvious now, like everybody knows that they don't live there anymore. So I think they're trying less to make it look like a living quarters, even though I always want to call it a dorm. It's definitely not that.
The library area or something. They just have like a kitchen and a bunch of tables around it, basically. And
Yeah, I think
couches.
cafeteria is a good word, like a comfy caf.
Wherever they were hanging out at and during Friends, it's kind of looked like that.
Right. Uh-huh.
Like a coffee shop or a restaurant.
It could really be a mix of the coffee shop and the living room that they hung out in. All in
Yeah,
Friends.
it's like hanging out at Barnes and Noble in a way.
It is kind of like Barnes and Noble. Okay, we're getting closer to the description here.
For sure. Laura gets emotional about her pros and cons list that she starts telling Jeremy about in her pod date. And
I've never heard a person get so emotional over pros and cons.
she was just like, I got this pros and cons list, and I have so many pros and only a few cons, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Well, I feel like that's very telling also for the later episodes
Mhm.
because at first I didn't really think anything of that whole situation, but she also talks a lot about how, I mean, she doesn't say it this way, but she says that basically she gets the ick really easily. And all the cons of people she gets caught up in because the pros usually aren't good enough. But she said for him, the pros were not just simple pros, they were like things that they deeply connected on. So she said that there's almost no con that could overshadow all of these pros. So we will see, I guess, when we get to the DR.
And I almost wanted to play a drinking game though when she said her whole monologue because it was like every other word. And I know that like is a very overused word and we use it a lot here too. But that was wild. I was like, wow.
The filler word that people use mostly when they don't know what they're saying. They're just making it up on the fly.
I should have counted because I was just sitting there in awe of it.
We could be a lot drunker right now if you did.
Oh, we totally should. I should have did it as a drinking game today, or else I definitely wouldn't have been able to film today. Jeremy talks about falling for her because when he goes to bed at night, he wants to see her. Real cute, Elon Musk. But these love triangles are going on for so long for me. I understand them going on for quite a few days, but this is final day and these people don't know for sure if somebody is about them or not. And that's just weird to me.
I think there's still one more day, but these episodes too are in the pod. That's a little bit long for me, especially after this episode. I was like, I am ready to leave the pod. Why do we still have, I think there was 2 more reveals to be had in the next episode, even before we leave. So yeah, it is starting to become a lot. I think they probably could have shortened this part a little, but
I do believe that Jimmy waited till the very last day.
he waited until the very last minute, and so did Chelsea.
Wild. So we get to see AD and Clay on their pod date. Clay goes into a little speech about how he just wants to be better for her. And he drops a little nugget that he's never watched the show. Intrigued by that. Like, is that real? Or
I think it is real. I think that that's why he was so hung up on physical attraction, didn't see why it was so crazy to everybody, including
Mhm.
the viewing public, that he would even ask that question and say something. Like, it's one thing to ask the question, it's another thing to say, I will not get on a knee and propose to you unless I can be certain that I'll be attracted to you. There's no way to do that on this show. Not even that's not the point of the show. There is literally no way to do that. They could catfish you like other people. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. I do genuinely believe him when he says that he didn't really know what he signed up for, which I also think is crazy in this day and age. You should definitely do your homework before you jump onto a reality show that you know nothing about. It sounds like he watched a couple of episodes and that's how he realized what he had already signed up for, but I don't know.
I don't get it. Clay does end up proposing to AD, and she kind of squeals for a while. It was a lot of squealing and screaming, let's go, back and forth when it came to their proposal. But let's go is something that they're all screaming after they
I
propose.
noticed the "let's go" scream too. Like, every man screamed it, and it was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit because where are you going? You're not going anywhere. Even when you go to meet this woman, which is not right now, after you meet her, you're not going anywhere again. They usually have them stuck in a hotel room for days and days and days. And then guess what? After you go to the DR, you're not going anywhere again after that for a while. Where
No.
are you all thinking that you're going?
You're not even going through the wall to meet her right then and there. Like, you're stuck.
That's what I mean. Let's go back to the men's cafeteria.
Did you notice AD was struggling with that Kleenex too by her eyes because she was shaking so bad from this proposal that she was literally
Yeah,
like,
I
girl,
did.
please don't poke your eye out.
I know. But has
Yeah.
enough hurdles around her eyeballs. Clay called his own hand lovely during the engagement. He said, I'm putting out my lovely hand or something. I think he really wanted to say, I'm asking for your lovely hand or something, but he called his own hand lovely when he was asking, which he probably does believe that his hand is lovely, and it's probably fine. But
So after all the squealing and let's going, we get to Brittany and Kenneth's reveal. And this is when Kenneth lets us know this is the first white woman that he's ever dated or been with.
and
To
this
kind
is
of
when
get
Brittany lets us know that Kenneth identifies as a black male. Not a clinical assessment, Brittany. This is your man.
I wasn't sure where to go
I'm
with
like,
it.
no, Brittany, this is a fact. I know. No,
He's telling you what he is.
that's what he is.
So
Hey.
they have a decent reveal. They're kissing respectively because they're having respectable relations.
Yeah, there's enough room for Jesus in between.
I mean, it was cute. She says it doesn't really matter what he looks like to her, but he is very handsome. And then they just shoot right over to Trevor and Chelsea, and he gets her these flowers. And she got Trevor this bracelet that lights up when you tap it to show somebody that you're thinking of them. Me and Dean got those for his deployment.
I know.
Ours only lit up. I don't think that they actually vibrate, but
Wouldn't that be cool? I think vibrates night. Well,
it could wake
you had other.
Yeah, so I thought that that was cute that she gave him that. I thought that that was putting him in the lead a little bit
Yeah.
because it's a very personal gift.
And it literally
One
said something like, "You have my heart forever. My
is
heart is yours
cute.
forever," or something. It said that. So I took that as the truth. I'm
Right.
sure Trevor did too. I think that that's why he really believed all the way up until the bitter end in what he believed.
He does end up saying that he loves her. He lets that slip, and she doesn't say it back, notably.
This is the
So,
second time now he's told her that he loves her with no response.
no, it's not looking good for Trevor if she's not saying it back now twice.
Yeah.
I have like a hot take, and I just feel like she's more fixated on Jimmy at this point just because someone else is also interested in Jimmy. In my opinion, he's more
Yes,
infatuated with Chelsea because Chelsea is a Megan Fox lookalike with no child. So
I agree. I think that there's so many assumptions that were at play here that impacted everyone's decisions that weren't actually everyone's reality. And
yeah.
I think you're exactly right that Chelsea cared more about Jimmy because Jessica cared about Jimmy. And
Mhm.
I think even further, Chelsea knowing what Jessica looks like in real life, I think also had an impact because I think Chelsea really wanted to win against a girl like Jessica. I just think that. I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
that's what the push or the desire to go for Jimmy over Trevor, because Trevor and her were perfect. There's nothing wrong with her and Trevor's relationship, at least that we saw. They never got in any arguments. They never had any disagreements. He was sure about her. She enjoyed him. All of that is great. And Jimmy, we'll get there.
Speaking of Jimmy, we see him and Jessica go on a pod date, and they're talking at first about their sexual tension. But Jimmy opens a gift from Jessica, and it's apparently a letter she wrote to her future husband years ago, which I'm not sure. How do you know it was years ago? Was it dated? Because it could have been written before the show. I don't know.
It was dated, and I also believe it because she is so fixated on this husband thing. She was probably heartbroken one day, lonely, thinking about whoever her husband is out there, and she just wanted to talk to him. I could totally see that from her.
Yeah, it's a beautiful letter, so I'll give her the benefit of the doubt on this one.
And you know what? Jimmy didn't deserve it.
No, he did not. He struggled
This
to
is
even
when
read
I
that.
realized that Jimmy is trash.
This is when I realized he's definitely not going for her at all. Because he read that whole letter. It seemed like he was okay with it until she got to the part about her kid again, and then he's like very turned off by this child thing. It's pretty apparent to me. It might not be the truth. I don't know. I'm alleging, but I really don't know. I don't see what else it was because he was getting on with her perfectly fine until
He is,
she
yeah,
dropped that
and
out
he
there.
should just say it. I mean, Jessica says multiple times, "I'm a big girl, you can tell me." I do think if Jessica would have said right out the gate, "Hi, I'm Jessica, I'm a single mom, blah, blah, blah," I don't think that Jimmy would have went for her, and I think that that would have allowed Jessica to make other connections, because later we'll see some accusations that Jessica makes, and I don't even know if I agree with those, even though I don't like Jimmy.
To be honest, too, Jimmy, when he heard that news, he didn't get mad at her. He got mad at Chelsea over
Yeah.
nothing. So he didn't even ever confront Jessica about how he felt. He just acted like everything was fine
Yeah.
until she does this. So it gets a little bit awkward as he's talking about his feelings and her feelings and all the feelings. And it was just a lot of word salad to me until he got to where he's like, well, I don't know if I can give you what you want to hear. And she's like, what do you think I want to hear? And he's basically saying that he thinks that she wants to hear I love you and he's not ready for that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy,
I think any amount of affirmation or reassurance would be fine. I mean, he says, "I feel very strongly about you," which I guess is close, but I mean, there's other things that you could say to reassure somebody, like, "I just need more time," or "There's nothing else that you could be doing," or blah blah blah. Jessica really is laying all her cards out on the table, and I think that it's giving desperate almost at this point. She's like, "I don't know what else I can give you or show you to make you say yes." And I feel bad for her because of that, because she should not feel that way at all. And she shouldn't have to lay all these things out on the table and have all these things to offer, especially to somebody who, as another YouTuber who I wish I remembered called Jimmy, is so emotionally constipated. She is just pouring her heart out to this man, and he has nothing for her. And the only thing that he can muster up in his mind is, the only response I can give her is "I love you," and I can't say that right now because I'm not sure. You can say other things. You can hold a
Jimmy.
conversation. You have got to be better than that.
He tells her that his feelings go without saying. And I
That
100%
triggered her.
agree with her when she
Yeah.
was like, how am I supposed to know? If you don't say something, I'm not going to know about it. That's just,
Especially in the pods. Like, the whole thing is about talking.
it was starting to get bad. He thinks that she wants him to tell her that he loves her. She just has kind of become a pushover in a lot of this conversation. She's just kind of like, you know what? I'm not mad. I'm fine. I just think we need to go to bed about it and give it some time. And
I think she baited him in that moment, though, into him starting to tell more of the truth about how he felt, because he did start to say a little bit more. That's when he mentioned Autumn again. He brought up what he was concerned about. And then she
Mhm.
got pissed, rightfully so. But I do think that she tried to say, "I'm a big girl. Tell me whatever you think I need to hear. It's okay, even if you're rejecting me." And then he started getting into why he might possibly reject her in the future. And she right away got to defending herself, which is what she should do. It's her daughter. She's going to defend how amazing they are and how much of a loss it's going to be for anybody. That conversation was just, It was scary. There was a lot of tension, and this isn't even the worst one yet.
No, it's just a buildup of trash.
I thought what was also interesting about the way that this pod date ended was Jessica had kind of called out Jimmy, "You probably can't handle a woman who's as strong-willed as I am." And he agrees in a way, but more so in saying that all the women that he's dated have allowed him to lead. And I think that it's so funny because he talks about always being used to being in the driver's seat, and then right away, he allows her to lead both of them out of the pots. She decides now what they're going to do with this information, when they're going to go to bed, that they're going to talk about it tomorrow. They're not going to be mad at you. She decided all of that. So I don't even know if I necessarily agree with Jimmy's whole I usually lead in a relationship, because it would have been very easy to say, "Hey, we're both upset. Let's go to bed, have a clear head, wake up in the morning." You're no leader, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
She leaves him in the pods. Jimmy goes back to the men's quarters to kind of, I guess, blow off some steam. He says that she handled the conversation the way he needed her to. Did you catch that?
Mature. That's what I mean. He does not want to lead. He wants to be led by Jessica. I think they could have. I think Jessica would have been disappointed, but I think
So Jimmy then goes on a pod date with Chelsea, and he gets right into their whole love triangle situation.
yeah.
He eventually says that he loves her, and she falls to the floor, quite literally. Right after telling Jessica that he is not ready to tell anybody that he loves them, he goes into his next date and says he loves her.
I know. And honestly, I didn't understand her reaction.
I think it's because she's stuck between two of them. The guy who's actually probably the one that she knows is good for her, and the one that she's caught up in a mess in. Because these other guys, they get along, so there's no drama there.
True.
So I don't know.
I also noticed that Chelsea got him a gift that day too. So he got gifts from both of these women. And I think he was terrified of whatever was in that box that Chelsea gave him because of the sentimental nature of Jessica's gift. I don't even know what was in that box.
I don't think we ever see it.
Mystery box.
Mystery box. Let us know, chit chatters, if we caught that. There's some weird editing going on in the lounge, that's for sure. When she comes back, she talks about him. He said he loves me, blah, blah. Choppy, weird editing about Jessica's over here. Then you got Lauren going between them both.
I have mixed feelings about what Laura did. She has an interesting personality that we have really yet to see, I think, the full effect of. And I think this is really one of the first times that we're seeing that she sometimes maybe doesn't think things through all the way. I don't know. I respect her in a way for being really honest with Jessica and giving Jessica the option to take back some power and just leaving if she has information that she should know. But I also don't think it's right to step in between other people's conversations, and they're not fully done yet. So let that play out for them.
Yeah, I just thought it was wild when she's like, you should just leave.
She said, "It's not your man. We know that that's not." She said, "We know it's not your man." Who's we? Because the only one that knows right now is you. That's why she looked around at all those other girls like, "Bitches, do you know something I don't know? I just been talking to all you." Everyone else is like, "I don't know nothing." No, just you know. And that's why she's like, "Is this factual information? Where on earth did you hear this?" She didn't even tell her.
She said,
"It's time to go."
just time to leave. Take it back for yourself.
I did love all the girl love and support. It seemed like almost everyone in the living area, cafeteria space, whatever, took a minute to come over there and put their hands on her and give her support.
I mean, I feel bad that she's got to fight with Jimmy, and then, this girl's coming back with the I love you. I don't know. But why was Jimmy telling her not to say anything when he confronts her later at some point? And he'll say, "Oh, I told you not to say anything about me saying I love you." Why can't she say anything if that's who you're picking?
Yeah.
I don't get the process. But so
we get to see Clay and AD meet next. And obviously AD was looking like AD, how she looks. She was just like, "Oh my God," and the dress and all of it. So
bless.
She's blessed. Definitely.
Oh, for sure. That was one of my favorite meetings, I think, just because it felt they were very excited by each other. It feels like everybody else is okay, like a business deal. It's nice and everything. But they actually seemed excited by each other. So
They did. I was like turned on watching them, and not like because they were real sexual, but they were just very into each other. You could tell.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I liked it. It was fun to watch. Lots of giggles and kisses, and they have their little black love moment going on. I think that's a good thing to see too. He gets right into like the infant baby position pretty much right away, just right in the titties.
And right in my titties. So then we
Mhm.
go over to Trevor and Jimmy in the guys' quarters just kinda hanging out because apparently they get along pretty well. How weird.
Apparently.
They're here talking about the what ifs. It seems like Trevor's sitting there trying to map out what's about to happen here. He's like a fantasy football thing.
Not
So
only map out, but I think he's trying to influence
yeah,
Jimmy's
he's like,
vote.
if you pick Jessica, then we can both leave here, with our people. And if
Yep.
you pick Chelsea, then I only got a 50-50 chance. It's like, dude, I can't tell if you're doing this because you want to truly know your odds or if you won't just really want to get to later.
I think Trevor personally really just wants Chelsea, but I
Yeah.
think he's trying to sell the idea of you can continue on this journey on TV if you pick this other girl and I can be with my person. I think that's really what he's trying to say.
Probably.
It could have went that way very easily.
So when they're talking about all this in the lounge, I thought it was funny when I believe it was Jeremy said, yeah, just don't call them the wrong names. Because they actually talked about the moment where either Trevor's sitting in this pod and Jimmy's in this pod and she goes into that pod and gets proposed to and then goes into his pod, or it's the opposite. He doesn't know what it's going to be. And that's where I'm like, these triangles are going to the day of proposal day.
It looks like they really did put both the men in the pods at the same time, and she had to kind of just walk into whichever one
Was first.
she wanted.
Yeah.
But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
But that's
First, we
basically
have
what
a
Trevor.
death.
It's funny because Jimmy goes into this pod date with Jessica, and I could hear this Hannah Montana music in the background, like, ooh. There's something, like when they go from scene to scene, it really felt like Hannah Montana entrance to a sad talk
Ooh.
or something.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's a
yeah.
sadder one, though.
Whatever.
But yeah, Jess is
Ooh,
in all.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh, man.
Jessica was dressed to the nines.
In black for
Her pity party, whatever she was trying to spare herself of, she was dressed for it.
I loved her shoes too. She looked good.
She looked really good. So this is where we get our infamous Jessica and Jimmy showdown.
Ooh, she was
So
ready for this. I
she'll play
think
them.
that this is why Jimmy didn't want Jessica to know yesterday that he told Chelsea that he loved her, because he did not want this conversation to start off and go down with her being prepared, because this
Yeah.
is what it looks like when Jess is prepared.
She's just like, it's not fair to who? Why wouldn't it
She
be fair
was
to me?
on every single noise he made right away. What was that? Excuse me? What did you say?
She was prepared. She comes out with it right away. She asks to not have a pity party. She then has him finally just kind of getting into his own monologue of, I think you're be this and that, but and a great mother and a great wife for someone else.
Awful.
She knows what's happening here.
Yeah. And she proceeded to go in on him. I mean, she was a little weepy, but I don't blame her. It doesn't take away from what she said at all. She has the take, which she's entitled to her experience, obviously, and opinion. But she feels like Jimmy ruined her experience. And I can see completely how she feels that way. But again, I also think that she did herself a little bit of a disservice by having a couple of dates with Jimmy before telling Jimmy about Autumn. Because I think at that point, Jimmy already felt like he was too deep in. Maybe he should still give it a try. The whole time realizing and probably knowing in the back of his mind that he's not down to be a stepdad right now. And I think if she would have just told him right off the bat, he might have gotten cold feet, as he should have, if that's the way he feels. And she would have had other opportunities to have other connections.
Yeah.
But she went in on Jimmy right away. and said that she was in for him right away, made him feel all the warm and fuzzies before she even told him about Autumn. And I don't think that that was fair to him. I really, really don't. I think that it was kind of messed up, actually. So I
Especially
get
in a
why
show
she
where it's never happened before.
yeah, he was completely blindsided by that. Jimmy is not my favorite person on the show, but I don't think that he deserves to be put in that position. He is somebody who has a very hard time with his emotions, obviously. And I don't think at that point, when he felt like there was this woman who was all in on him, that he felt like he could break her heart. And I think in his head, he thought it would be better to let it play out, and obviously it just got worse and worse and worse. And that's why he was so freaked out by the end of all of it. All of this went very, very bad for Jimmy, but it also went very, very bad for Jessica. And I think she could have done herself better by just being really upfront about Autumn, because you don't even want to entertain a man as a mother who's not interested in being a stepdad. You just don't. And she kind of played herself by entertaining a man who she didn't know if he was interested. She just hoped he would be. Well, he wasn't. And now her heart is broken. And I feel very, very, very bad for her.
But she's not making it easier when she's sitting here saying that her leaving alone wasn't supposed to happen. It's like, girl.
Oh, and it shouldn't have happened, because she is a great girl. She wants to be a wife. She's here for all the right reasons, but she should not have put all her eggs in this Jimmy basket before Jimmy had all the information to make, that decision. Man, I just know that when you're really sad, it turns into anger really quickly. And the shit that Jessica said to him when she was mad at the end of this pod session, I probably rewound it 15 times and listened while I cackled and just relished in it. I do love what she said. I mean, I think it was mean, and I don't think all of it was actually true or right. But the fact that she says, when you realize what you missed out on, you are going to choke, and tells him you will need your fucking EpiPen.
To clear your airways.
And she says you will be in disbelief, and tells him God bless you.
He looked shook
Chef's
after
kiss.
that. And this was after they played a little semantics game of, when did the decision get made? The decision got made when he was told about the child, to be honest.
It did. Yeah.
That's what I think. I think he tried, but
Because
no.
honestly, when Jimmy told Chelsea, I love you, the night before, he didn't even look relieved or happy or excited. He bowed his head back. I'm trapped. It was like he made the decision he didn't want to make. And if it wasn't for Jessica having a kid, I think he would have been all in on Jessica right away. They might have been the first ones to get engaged. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how I feel.
Yeah, she drops the mic. She walks out. He looks shook as hell. He looks really shook by this whole statement. I could tell it lived forever in his head, especially
Oh,
when he
yeah.
saw Chelsea.
The
But
God
yeah, so
bless you, that's going to replay in his brain forever.
forever. So Chelsea is now walking around torn between Jimmy and Trevor, and Jimmy is still reeling over Jessica in the pod for a moment. But they cut to Trevor walking into a pod, and Jimmy's walking into a different pod, and he's about to pop the question. He tells us right out the gate. He's just going for it. I mean, at this point, you kind of have to. Trevor, for some reason, sees this love triangle as a huge compliment that they're interested in the same girl. I mean, these guys are just way too cool with each other. So
They love each other. I think everyone, all the men, I think they all love Jimmy. He seems to have a really good relationship with everybody. So I think that
yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, Jimmy seems like a good guy. He just doesn't seem emotionally available.
they show Chelsea walking into a pod, but they just kind of cut it off there. And that's how
Yeah.
they leave us on episode 4. All right. Well, we'll catch you in the next one.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, Chick Chatters. See you next time.
Meow.